Gracie Jiu Jitsu rocks. Welcome to the Gracie Jiu Jitsu Rocks podcast, a podcast dedicated to Gracie Jiu Jitsu and all things Gracie, including self-defense, competition, anti-bullying, women's self-defense and empowerment, nutrition, and most especially, the people involved in Gracie Jiu Jitsu. This podcast is for the average Joe. It's for anyone who practices, trains, teaches, or just loves to talk about or hear about Gracie Jiu Jitsu. We'll explore the lives of Gracie Jiu Jitsu practitioners, how they got involved in the art, and what effect it's had on their lives. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. Welcome to episode 57 of the Gracie Jiu Jitsu Rocks podcast. As always, I'm your host, Marty Josie, and thanks for listening. Got a very exciting show today, so let's jump right into the Jiu Jitsu quote. If you're not comfortable to deal with an opponent 50 pounds heavier than you, there's something wrong with your Jiu Jitsu. If you're not comfortable to fight with no time limit, there's something wrong with your Jiu Jitsu. And this quote is from Master RIckson Gracie. And today's guest, who I'm very excited about, is certainly no stranger to the concept of this quote, because he's put it to the test on many, many occasions over the years. He has certainly proved the effectiveness of Jiu Jitsu, and many times with people much bigger than him, often with people even 100 pounds heavier. And I'm speaking of none other than the world-renowned, legendary Master Pedro Sauer. So before we get to the interview, I want to give you a little bit of the background story that led to the interview. About 2 years ago, give or take, I got in touch with Professor Keith Owen. And Keith is a Pedro Sauer black belt and just all-around awesome guy. I did an interview with Keith, and after the interview, Keith put me in touch with Mike Horahan, and Mike runs Professor Sauer's Association and is also an awesome individual. Mike put me in touch with Luis Lamau Heredia and Jeff Curran, and I was able to do interviews with them. And then he helped me set up an interview with Master Pedro Sauer. And this interview took place last September, so just over a year ago at Professor Mark Kukrow's Academy, which is Integrated Martial Arts Academy in Harrisburg, North Carolina. So I was able to sit down one-on-one and speak with Professor Sauer, and afterwards had a fantastic seminar. So all was right with the world. And then something bad happened. The something bad that happened was that before I could save and start editing the interview with Professor Sauer, my software crashed. So I ended up losing the entire interview, and as you can imagine, I was very disappointed. Could not believe that it had happened. And because of the busy schedule that Professor Sauer maintains, I've been trying for the past year to get another opportunity to interview him. During the past year, a lot of things have happened. I was able to connect with and interview more Pedro Sauer black belts, more people in his organization, and people that are associated with Master Sauer. And these include David Christic, Alan Manganello, and Robbie Singh as part of the Gracie Academy's ICP episode, David Porter, Mike Moses, and also Alan Hopkins is a Pedro black belt that I interviewed as well. And one of the cool things about all this is going through this, I had no idea that the Pedro Sauer Association was going to align with the Gracie Academy. And when I found out that had happened, I was very surprised, very happy, because I think it's a really great thing for sure. But it was one of those kind of, universal things that you feel like just when you're aware of something, going on much larger than yourself. And what I'm speaking of is, for some reason, I was drawn to connect with so many Pedro Sauer people over the last year to 2 years, and had no idea that the alignment was going to occur. So when it happened, it just seemed to work out really, really cool for me. Also during the past year, besides the initial seminar with Master Sauer, I attended another seminar up at the grand opening of his academy in Herndon, Virginia, where Master RIckson Gracie was on hand as well. And I also got to spend some time with him out at the Gracie Academy this past summer at the instructor certification program. And what I've gleaned from being around him in the past year, as well as speaking with the other Pedro Sauer folks that I've been able to connect with, is just what an incredible man that Master Sauer is. He is truly an awesome individual, and besides being incredibly knowledgeable, he's one of the nicest and most gracious people I've ever met. I just can't say enough about the class that he has and the example he's been for Jiu-Jitsu through the years. He's certainly an ambassador for Jiu-Jitsu like none other. For those of you not familiar with Master Sauer, he's the founder of One Spirit Jiu-Jitsu Academy in Herndon, Virginia. He's an 8th degree red and black belt in Jiu-Jitsu. He received his black belt in 1985 from Master RIckson Gracie and Grandmaster Elio Gracie. He received his 3rd degree from Grandmaster Horion Gracie. And through the years, he has, again, been such an ambassador for Jiu-Jitsu, such a shining example of living the Jiu-Jitsu lifestyle of someone who carries himself with poise and class and just exudes positive energy. It's no stretch to say that if there are more people in the world like Professor Sauer, the world would be a much better place. So this leads us back to the recent interview. I was very happy to be able to get a second opportunity to sit down one-on-one with Professor Sauer. And this occurred again at a seminar at Mark Kukro's school. And thank you very much, Professor Kukro, for facilitating this and making this happen. I really appreciate it. So before we get to the interview, just a few shout-outs I want to give to some people at the seminar. Starting with Joshua Page. And Joshua is the owner of Hickory Academy of Martial Arts, and it's always a pleasure to see Joshua and be around him. He's just such an outstanding person with great energy. Also, Teddy Johnson. Teddy and I are Facebook friends and have spoken on the phone, but I had never met him in person, so great to meet you, Teddy. Also, Chaz Valentine, great to meet you, sir. Professor Fernando Salvador, always a pleasure to be around you as well, sir. Khalil Nasir, great meeting you and working with you throughout the seminar. Very much enjoyed it. And lastly is Dan Chamberlain. And Dan is an instructor up at Professor Sauer's headquarters in Virginia. And Dan was recently promoted to black belt from Professor Sauer. So very nice working with you, Dan, and huge congratulations on obtaining your black belt, sir. Okay, without any further ado, let's talk to Master Sauer. Okay, I have the distinct pleasure of being live and in person with Master Pedro Sauer. So thank you, sir, so much for taking the time and have a conversation with me today.
My pleasure. Thank you very much. My pleasure to be here.
And you certainly keep a busy schedule. You're all over the place. You just finished up your Brazil camp that I know you do twice a year, and you think you just got back last night, right?
Yep.
So what was it like? Tell us, for the people who don't know, tell us a little bit about the camp in general, but also about this specific one. What was it like and what went on there?
The camp in Brazil, what we do is we host a camp in Petrópolis. It's a state of Rio de Janeiro. We're about 45 to 50 minutes from the beach of Copacabana. But we live, the area where we stay is my grandfather's home. and summer home. And we can accommodate, up to 40 people there, but we close to 20. We try to keep 20 people maximum capacity, just because transportation, and when you're going to visit other schools, to have 40 people walking in the school. Rio de Janeiro, all the schools are very small. So for us to be walking in with 20 people is already a massive amount of people going there. But it's a great time. We stay up in the mountains in a beautiful property. The place is like full of wildlife and jungle. We have close to 1,000 acai trees.
Wow.
It's a paradise. It's an incredible place. It's beautiful and very comfortable, very safe. We have transportation. We can do anything. Basically, when you're there, you're taken care by security, so you don't go nowhere without somebody following you. We have everything. Pretty much Grandmaster Helio Gracie's car is being remodeled right now, restored right now.
That's very cool.
So we're going to be driving Grandmaster Helio's car. Yeah.
That's so cool.
So it's pretty cool.
Wow. Well, it's definitely on my bucket list. I'd love to attend one of those. Sounds like just an incredible time for sure. And you also have a big milestone just happened in your life. You have a brand new grandson.
That's true. We just had my daughter Priscilla. She just had her third kid. She had two daughters, Libby and Mia, and now we have a baby Carter.
All right, so baby Carter Sauer.
Yeah, that's how I would like him to be remembered.
Wow.
Baby Carter. I hope he might enjoy Jiu-Jitsu. He might be a Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, and it would be very cool to have a first boy in the family, basically.
Wow. So how does it feel to have a new grandson?
Well, I feel great. I think it's awesome to have my daughters having kids, and I see the family growing. I think it's just a very nice environment. My daughter is such a nice, she's so responsible, such a good mom, such a good lady, and she's in my opinion, one of the best moms that I ever seen in my life.
Wow. That's awesome. And you have 2 daughters?
I have 5 biological daughters.
Okay.
My wife has a son and a daughter from a prior marriage that I raised them since little kids. So I like to consider them my own kids. So basically I have 6 girls and a boy.
Wow, that's great. That's great. And do any of them train?
Oh, they all done some training. They all experienced Jiu-Jitsu. They all been to close yellow belt. My first 2 kids, Priscilla and Thaisa, Priscilla got to her orange belt. Thaisa got to her yellow belt, 4th degree, and all my other kids got to yellow belt. So they know the basics. Sure. They know some. I wish they could have continued, but I never force. I try to force a little bit, but they don't listen to that very much.
I can relate to that. And your wife, you've been married for quite a long time?
Yep. Yeah, been married for quite a while. So it's been 20-something years right now that we've been together, 23 years, I believe. And
how did you guys meet, if you don't mind sharing that?
We met each other in a gym where we had a friend in common that introduced us when I was arriving at the gym. And I gave her a flyer, what I was doing. And I barely spoke English at the time. So I gave her a flyer, and she actually came to class and shows up in class. And, back at the time, we used to wrestle and grapple in the carpet. There was no mats.
Wow.
So she was sitting in the corner, and I wanted her to be a little bit more comfortable. So I had my own personal gi, and I lent to her a gi that was kind of not stinky gi.
Right.
And she, when I was teaching class, she used to look. I looked to the side, and she was smelling the gi. So anyway, she's not gonna like me to say this in public here, but that's how it started. And I look at the lady, said she was such a nice lady, very, very nice, very friendly. And she was smelling my gi, and that's how it started.
The rest is history.
The rest is history.
Well, in this day and age, more marriages tend to break up than stay together. So it's quite admirable to have such a long-term relationship. Do you have any thoughts or advice for people out there if they want to have a nice long-term relationship like you?
Yeah, I see relationships almost like a Jiu-Jitsu learning process in Jiu-Jitsu. It is when you understand how to yield to win. You want to understand that this fighting is not you're not gonna win anything fighting. You're not gonna, even if you win, you lose. Mm-hmm. And the best thing to do is be patient and take your time, couple step back, thinking about. Don't answer. Don't be agitated. Don't aggravate the situation. Just take it as a Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. If somebody got 2 hands in your neck, you're going to tap.
Right.
So why are you going to be agitated? Why are you going to be pushing? Why are you going to be screaming with 2 hands in your neck if you can just very easily tap and negotiate with your partner? I think that Jiu-Jitsu teach us how to be more peaceful, how to take a negotiating pattern a little bit easier. And I don't think it's a win or lose situation, because when you live in harmony, it's a win-win for everybody. Mm-hmm. And I'm not I believe that I'm a fighter by instinct, but I'm an intelligent fighter. I know when to fight and I know when not to fight. And most of the time with wives, we as a man, we need to step back and understand that it's not time to fight. We're not going to win nothing.
Right. Just learn as much as we can.
Learn as much as you can, respect as much as you can,
yeah.
be kind, be respectful, don't aggravate, and learn. We have to learn a lot with women.
Yes.
Women got a lot of things to teach us.
They do indeed. Well, there you have it, folks. Marriage advice from Professor Master Pedro Sauer. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
So most people listening to this will, of course, be very familiar with you and your history. But for those that are maybe new to Jiu-Jitsu, maybe haven't been around, let's go back a little bit to the old days. We won't stay there a long time, but let's talk about when you first came over to the States and the kind of Wild West days, the dog-eat-dog days, and just share just a little bit about what that was like for you.
Mm-hmm. Well, coming to the United States, I came here in May of 1990, and there was a pretty tough time. I didn't speak a word in English. I couldn't understand nothing that people was telling me, surround me. And before I came to the United States, I was a broker. I studied, did college, and I did a lot of study related to stock market. And I was a pretty smart guy. I used to have a very nice circle of friendship. My surrounding friendship in Rio de Janeiro was very, very nice. And for me to just drop everything, completely drop 100%, all my friends, all my connections, all business connection that I had for 12 years, that was a broker, and just come to the United States without learning, without speaking English. It was a pretty difficult time.
Yeah.
And I believe in the beginning, when I was in California with the Gracies, I used to share the room with Helio Gracie. With me, Helio Gracie, and El Limon, we used to sleep in the garage. And it was a very tough time. Everybody was broke. There was not enough money to pay for the meals for us. It was a very, very, very tough time. But we survived. We had those challenges, those fights almost every day. It was a pretty tough time. But I decided to move to Utah to learn English. That's why it was my first thought. I was like, man, I've been here in California for 6 months and I haven't learned English at all. And if I want to be somebody here in America, I got to learn the language first. So that was my first step to move away from California, was because I want to move away from the Brazilians. Even though I loved all my friends, I knew I was never going to learn English if I stay there. It was going to be way more difficult to learn English. So I merged myself in Utah. And in Utah was when I moved there, that's when RIckson Gracie put the challenge on a black belt magazine, offering $100,000 for whoever could beat a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu black belt. And I opened the first Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Academy in Utah, the first branch, the first time that was the Gracie Academy had a branch, an affiliate. And I had people come to my door almost every week, knock on the door, bring the magazine, and say, I came here for the $100,000.
Wow. And
I have to, tell you, hold on a second, let me call. So I used to call Jorge, and Jorge get in the phone with the guy, they negotiate, and after that, the guy gave Jorge, I got the phone back, and Jorge just said, Pedrinho, just go ahead and fight, there's no money involved. And that's our normal week. We used to do this normally every week.
Wow.
But what we used to do, he said, listen, it's $100,000, but you have to put $10,000 if you want to fight. So if you won, you get $100,000. If you lose, you lose $10,000. And that was a pretty good deal compared to my size. And I was 152 pounds. My face is not something that I'm threatening. People look at me, you might think I'm somebody who works in a tie and a suit every day. You're never going to think I'm somebody who's trained Jiu-Jitsu as a career. So it was a pretty easy pick, but the trick was, hey, you're already here, so let's go ahead and fight for free. You already came here for $100,000, you don't have $10,000 to put it on, so let's fight for free.
Right.
And what we used to do, we just put boxing gloves on the guys and said, you can do whatever you want. You can kick, punch, anything you want. And the only thing I'm going to do, I'm going to make you say uncle. And that's how 100% of the fights went. Wow. We did 100% like that.
Amazing. You really had to prove it back then and walk your talk every day. And I'm sure you really grew a lot from it and came out stronger. But you also, at some point, got to a point where you wanted it to be more, or you found the value in keeping things more playful.
Yep.
Talk a little bit about that.
Well, one thing that I learned from the early beginning in America was that over United States, the size of people here, they are a little bit bigger than Brazilians. Brazilians, they average, 68, 72 kilos, 70 kilos average. American go to 85, 82, 80. It's a lot bigger skeletons. And of course...
It's all those big gulps here.
Yeah, the big guys, they do have the big guys. And, you put a big skeleton, and with the food diet in America being a little bit fast food kind of, and people lifting weights. Remember that in the late 80s, that's Arnold Schwarzenegger time. Yeah. Everybody was in the gym, everybody was building muscle, everybody was huge. And later came steroids time. That was make those guys even bigger. Those are the people that we have to face all the time. That was a pretty tricky time. There was I won't say I believe it was fun, but we paid the price with a lot of injuries because we had to do those fights not in a mat area. Most of the time we did in a hardwood floor, we did in a carpet floor or a parking lot. It was not, let's come to my dojo, because there was no mats. Nobody had mats. So every single dojo that you walk in America you barely find mats. Only mats was judo. And at the time judo was not that big. It was only a few schools. Yeah. And they're very respectful. They're very nice. In my opinion, one of the best practitioners was judo players. Very, very solid players. And that's the only place that had mats. But we could not go to the dojo school and say, can we use our mats for fighting? It's completely unacceptable for judo culture.
Right.
So we just done on the floor.
Wow. That's definitely different.
It was different.
That's keeping it real.
It was keeping completely real. And we got if you think about people, how many injuries that the time of the time, the 80s and 90s brought so much injuries. Anybody who came here in the early times and done those challenge on the hardwood floor or carpet, we all got hammer in our bodies because your shoulder kind of goes out, your hips goes out, your back goes out. Pretty soon when you're young, you bounce back next day.
Right.
But years later, we pay the price. So if you see the guys who actually done it back then, it was the guys who paid the most steep price. Today is no doubt that Jiu Jitsu is very efficient. There's no doubt that you have UFC talk about Jiu Jitsu every day. So people understand what Jiu Jitsu is capable, even though we don't have as many people yet. Jiu Jitsu is growing very, very fast. The problem that I see is that is this division between sport Jiu Jitsu and more self-defense Jiu Jitsu. I believe that when we start, any person who came to class, when you initiate the person with more self-defense oriented kind of mechanics and more self-defense approach from the early beginning, what it does is let us to protect ourselves, allowed us to understand how to protect ourselves a little bit better on the early days. So that means when we start grappling, the person already know, he has some kind of idea. The way how we used to do back then was, hey, do what you want to do. I'm going to do whatever I want to do, and let's see who's going to tap. And most of the time, you tap the guy 10, 15, 20 times, but you never see the guy anymore. The guy disappeared. He get demoralized, he get hurt, and you don't see the shooting anymore. So I believe that now with this approach of more structure, approach by learning process, you see with the Gracie Academy and Pedro Sauer Association, this idea about us merging in the beginning of January of 2016, I saw the program is being taught the way how Helio Gracie would like to see it. the way how I learned on the beginning. When I learned Jiu-Jitsu in the beginning, yes, I got murdered my first day of class. I got murdered every single day. But I was doing self-defense every day. And that's what Helio Gracie done it for us. He made sure for you to understand how to grapple, you have to understand first how not to get punched.
Yes.
You know, that's how Jiu-Jitsu suffers in Brazil, is because in Brazil, everybody used to fight all the time. But how good your Jiu-Jitsu could be, how good you're going to do well in Jiu-Jitsu if you didn't know how to protect yourself from a punch and kicks and headbutts.
Yes.
So we need to learn that, because otherwise you could be a black belt in Jiu-Jitsu and a little kid completely crazy close his eyes and swing a luck punch in you, and you're down the ground, pass out. Right. You get knocked out.
That's a great point, because it seems like a lot of places there's a disconnect. Some places and schools don't even focus at all on self-defense, but even some of the ones that do have their stand-up self-defense curriculum, the old traditional stand-up self-defense. That's a huge part of the Gracie system. And then they have rolling. But you don't see the two worlds kind of intermesh or connect. Whereas the way the Gracie Academy does with their combatives, and the way that you've embraced connects those dots to where, you're even rolling, you're making it dynamic, but the whole focus at first is punch protection and using your triangle, using your arm bars within that element of punching and punch defense, instead of just categorized over here self-defense and then over here you're rolling. So I really definitely think that's a good thing for Jiu-Jitsu. Let's continue talking about your alignment with the Academy. So I saw you out at the ICP, the Instructor Certification Program, a few months ago, and I think it was the biggest one they've had so far. And certainly a lot of people from the Pedro Sauer organization are starting to go through that. What are your thoughts on how that particular one went, and in general, your instructors going that way?
Well, I can. When I decided to join the Gracie Academy, when we start thinking about merging this idea of self-defense by Grandmaster Helio Gracie, when I saw the combative course, what I did, I took 1 year to study. So for the period of 1 year, the whole entire year of 2015, I had several black belts join the Gracie Academy, and they kept giving me information. And I already knew that what we are doing was very similar. And when I start seeing the results, of those black belts, there was very successful black belts. And my idea was always been, we need to preserve the art of Jiu-Jitsu, because Jiu-Jitsu today, as a sport and as a self-defense, those two branches that went out, it is almost like a misguide. You're misguiding the public, because Jiu-Jitsu, the real Jiu-Jitsu that was developed in Brazil by Carlos Gracie learning from Conde Coman, Carlos Gracie passing to Helio Gracie, and Helio Gracie adding his flavor. Those guys did under a very harsh environment. They did those moves, those techniques was being developed to work in a street, no holds bar, street application. When I talk about no holds bar, I'm talking about eye gougings, biting, and all kind of the dirty, growing, every kind of growing. That's how it was back in the early days, 1920s, 1930s, 1940s, 50s, 60s. Close to 1960s, Grandmaster Helio Gracie, with the popularity of Jiu-Jitsu growing, he decided to create a sport. They decided to create a little branch where people can actually put two practitioners to compete against each other to see who had a better Jiu-Jitsu. But at the time, everybody knew self-defense. Everybody was involved in self-defense, because in Rio de Janeiro, if you are going to be in a fight against somebody, you cannot imagine that you're going to just sit down on the ground and the guy's going to get in your guard, or you're going to, surround himself or butt scooting. Every fight starts standing up.
Right.
And that's how they done it. That's how Helio Gracie done it. That's how most of the fights, if you see Carlson Gracie, you see Halls, RIckson, Helson, all those guys, even though the Jiu-Jitsu practitioners is not 100% involved in judo, beautiful judo takedowns, incredible takedowns in judo, but it's a very important part of Jiu-Jitsu to have the knowledge to put somebody down on the ground safe. So that's the way how Jiu-Jitsu was developed. And later, what happened that in 1990, when we came to America, it was a gap. It was a gap that happened in Brazil. From 1990 to 96, it was this gap where a lot more people started being introduced to Jiu-Jitsu, but only through competitions. And the IBJJF started around the time, 95, 96, and a lot of people started getting involved in the Jiu-Jitsu, but more for competition style. And what happened is a lot of instructors that stay in Brazil, they were not instructors that was, I won't say like a qualified, but I want to say they wanted the students to go and represent the school. If you go there to compete and represent my school and you bring a medal, I can get more students. Doesn't matter how you done it, matter that your arm was up on the air. So the rules that people start surrounding, human beings, we always find a gap.
Right.
I don't care which country, who you are. If you give the possibility of sport, you will find a gap. How to score the points, how to maintain those points. So I saw this happen in Brazil. So you see the fights now. They get together. They kind of clump to each other with nobody scoring points whatsoever. They both guys sit on the butts. They wrap each other's legs, and they stay there. If the match is 10 minutes, they spend 8.5 minutes on the same position, pretending they're doing something.
Right.
When come a minute left, they put everything they got to score the advantage, or to score the point, or to do some kind of maneuver that's going to give them the advantage. And after that, they just lay on top and don't do nothing. And the sad part is that guy is going to end up winning the match. And because the IBJJF, the way how it goes is that if you compete 1 year and you're a blue belt and you got the gold medal, then you compete another year, blue belt, gold medal. You come in the third time, hey, you cannot be in a blue belt anymore. You have to pass it on.
Right.
So a lot of people in Brazil got promoted specifically by winning tournaments, by advantage, by 2 points, with using strategy. And when they got the up to black belt, okay, now I'm black belt, I'm going to open my school. Well, what they're going to be teaching, strategy of tournaments.
Right.
So that's what happened today all over the world. And this started in Brazil. That's what happened in Brazil in the 90s. But now it's spreading everywhere. In my personal opinion, I would like to see everybody. Imagine you have somebody as a brand new guy coming to class and learn a curriculum. You just learn curriculum. You got to learn punch block. You got to learn distance management. You got to learn kick block. You got to learn head block. You got to learn all self-defense. And after that, you can compete as much as you want, no problem. You can grapple as much as you want, no problem. But your basics, now that you have in your brain as a basics, is no longer sport, but it's self-defense. That means you're going to be able to pass the self-defense better to other people.
Yes.
I believe that everybody that is there teaching class, put a black belt, and you are teaching in front of 20, 30, 50 people, if you do have self-defense in your arsenal, you're going to provide a better service. That's my personal opinion.
I like the way you said that, because a lot of people think this is kind of a new concept. But the way you described it is way back how Helio had it. Everybody, when the competition stuff came aboard, it was because everybody else already had the foundation. So it wasn't skipping any of that. It was just building on it to another realm of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. I know with any change, and we're talking about your alignment here with the Gracie Academy, with any change, there are people that quickly see the value and embrace the change, and then there's always some that are hesitant, maybe a little slower to embrace that. What do you say to any people or any of your schools who haven't been that happy with or haven't really accepted the idea of this alignment and the change that's
Well, I was very clear when I was getting ready to do this transition, to merge this curriculum. I was very clear. What I decide to do it, I decide to put my school as a guinea pig. And I didn't force nobody, and I'll never force no one to do that. But I done it myself. I said, I want to see results. I want to see the results at my house, at the headquarters. Because with the result of the headquarters, I can tell you later, a year later, 2 years later, I can tell exactly what happened. That was my position. And I had a few guys that contaminate a few other guys. And the sad part that when I did this merge, my thought that I have in my mind was like, man, I need to help my black belts. I produce 120 black belts, and now they have business, they have schools, and they have their own affiliate underneath of them because I promote them. Anybody who join the Pedro Sauer Association, and I see that you in North Carolina, I'm gonna tell you, come here to Mark Kruko, let he be your lead coach,
right.
Let he help you. I done this in many other states, in Mississippi. I done this in Alabama, in many other places. All over, I try to have leaders to help everybody. But at the same time, it was clear for me that those leaders didn't know how to run a business. They have no clue. They've been in business for 10 years, and they don't maybe have 50, 60 students. And that was a very in my point of view was I thought about I was doing a disservice at the time, and I want to help those guys to do a better service. Well, I know that I formed great black belts, but I didn't form great instructors that know how to run business. And I learned through my career many different people that helped me out. Dave Kovar, was somebody who was always giving me some advice from the early days. I always learned a lot of stuff from Kovar. Steve Laval, always great guys. It was Mr. Coquino at the Education Founding Company. It was several people that helped me out with business. And I struggled for many, many years. My school was not successful. I decided to put a school in a small town. Salt Lake City was small. Provo was very small. And I was running school there, full-time school. So I never had more than 100 students when I was running the numbers. I was like, man, if I cannot have more than 100 students, how am I expecting my black belts to succeed? Well, I started seeing the one that was doing the better was the one that was following curriculum. It was more structured. It was more follow to self-defense kind of aspect. And when this merge came with the Gracie Academy, I done this thinking about those guys mainly because personally, myself as a Pedro Sauer, I could just walk away from all this and think about, you know what, I retired. I'm not going to do it anymore. I don't need money anymore.
Right.
I'm comfortable financially. I don't need to work anymore. But what I did, it was specifically to help out those individuals that was not successful on the not financially, but socially. They are not bringing people together. They could not have over 100 students in the school. If you tell me a black belt that can have 200-300 students, and I'll tell he's a successful guy. In the Pedro Sauer Association, we didn't have that. So the merge came with the 100% idea to have those guys be more successful, to be able to provide a better service, where they don't have to kill each other like I done it. Because I do seminars pretty much every weekend.
Yeah.
And I do this because I want to help the school. When I came here to North Carolina, I want to make sure that North Carolina get a vision. People see that this school here is supported by Pedro Sauer. If I go to a different state, if I go to Hawaii, I want to go to Ryan Lazares. If I go to any other place, if I go to Australia, I go to all the guys in Australia, Dave, Murat, all the Phil, Robbie, all the guys that they've been with me. They trust what I'm doing. They believe what I'm doing. And I want to see them successful. I want to see them do well. I think that money is the consequence of the work that we do. Money cannot be the reason what we do. So when you think about money as a consequence of a good work, if you do a good work, you should be paid well.
Right.
But if you if you want to open a martial arts school and your reason is only to put money in your bank, and you don't care about the social environment that they surround, it's not the right way to do it.
Yeah.
So that's when this merger, when that happened, my thought was 100%, I want to see my black belts do well. Nothing could make better. Imagine a father that has your kids, and you see your kids doing well.
Yes.
Going to college, getting a good degree, going to study. Now they have a successful job. Or you have a father who have kids that getting drunk every day, don't go to the school.
Right.
That's the same thought.
That's a great analogy, how to put it. Yeah.
It's the same idea.
Wow. So you really care.
You gotta care. You gotta do it.
That's awesome. And along those lines, you've inspired so many people over the years to start jiu-jitsu, to stay in jiu-jitsu, to pursue that path. So let me ask you, what inspires you in life?
Well, I'd say Grandmaster Helio Gracie for me was a big inspiration. I was able to be with him for 15 years in a daily basis. And that was an incredible learning process for me. It was an incredible experience because with Helio Gracie, you didn't learn only jiu-jitsu. You learn all kind of life, every kind of life path you can possibly imagine. Helio Gracie would live his life without saying maybe. It was yes or no, flat out, right in your face, very clear. So when for myself being exposed to him for 15 years on a daily basis, it gave me first was appreciation. I believe what he passed to me as a knowledge of jiu-jitsu and as a knowledge of life endeavors, life preparation, what I have to do for my life, for me to be coming to the United States, I came with him. We came basically together. We arrived here the same week. So those things gave to me like a disposition and almost a gratitude. I want to make sure that Helio Gracie art will be preserved. That's another reason that I decided to kind of merge with the Gracie Academy and to bring RIckson to this path. And my goal is to bring every single person to understand what the combative is about. Instead, imagine that, you can get your belt online. I don't like this. And turn your face away. It's completely the opposite.
Right.
It is so difficult. I have 3 black belts who failed the blue belt test.
Yeah, if that doesn't say something, that's what does, right?
It is unbelievable. So what I done myself is I merged myself for 3 days. I went to the Gracie Academy and I merged myself from 7 in the morning at 10 o'clock at night. Hannah picked me up 7 o'clock in the morning sharp. The car rolled over in front of the hotel. I got in and I studied the Gracie combative truly deeply to the whole aspect. And not just that, I was able to observe all the kids class. For 3 days, I saw maybe 150 kids. And I saw the way how kids was looking at me, the way how the kids were shaking my hands. I got a chance to interact with the parents. I got a chance to talk to the parents. I got a chance to see beginners class, intermediate class, the free roll class. I got a chance to see it all for 3 days. And I was very pleased with the result. I believe Helio Gracie would like to see that. He'll be proud.
Wow.
And of course, the unity that we think about, the United, Jiu-Jitsu United, the idea was like, man, I think I'm in a very good spot now to start that. Because somehow I don't get too much people who does not like me or talk bad about me. If somebody talk bad about me or does not like me, I had a friend of mine that used to say that probably the guy don't even know who you are. He may be just repeating something.
Right.
Because the person know who you are, he know who the person that you are. So if somebody's talking crap about you, he probably doesn't know who you are. And I thought about I was in a perfect position to say, you know what, that would be a perfect spot now for us to start reunited people to fight for a big cause. The big cause is the cause that when we came to America, we came for that. We came to America here to fight, to put ourselves in line, to get in it was every single day. Can you imagine to be at home, watch TV with your kids, and somebody knocking the door wants to fight you? And you say, kids, put a pause on the cartoon,
right,
and I'll be back in 10, 15, 20 minutes, half an hour.
Right.
That's the way I was. So it was a very crazy time.
Yeah.
But that time we were united. When you talk about fight, and Jiu-Jitsu always been united in a way that we fought against luta libre guys, we fought against any challenge. I was united. And I saw this going away. I saw this spreading apart. Oh, I'm going to open my own deal here. Oh, I'm going to open my own deal over there. Oh, I'm going to join this other guy here. That kind of attitude, the path that you're doing, that's something that's going to hunt you forever.
Mm-hmm.
Because think about that. As an instructor, what do you think we're doing when we're in front of 20, 30 people every day in class? We're trying to unite those guys. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
we're trying to pass the art. I'm trying to break your arm. I'm trying to put you to sleep. I'm trying to break your legs. But you need to have a respect against each other. Otherwise, you're going to break each other's every night. Huh?
Right.
That's how we're going to go. Mm-hmm. So if you as instructor and you don't bring this unity thought to your students, it's very difficult for you to make a living. Mm-hmm. And especially when you break away. When you break away from different, let's imagine you go to different route. You know what, and I don't like what you're doing. I'm going to join this other team over there. Or I don't like what you did it. I don't like the way how you're doing. I'm going to join over there. I'm not saying that I'm not judging people who do this for the right reasons.
Right.
Of course, you have reasons that, unfortunately, sometimes you have instructors that does not position themselves as a leader. They do bad things. Mm-hmm. They touch people in the wrong way. They do some bad things. And if you break away from that person, it's 100% acceptable. Mm-hmm. The problem when you have a good instructor, good person, a good leader, and you break away, well, that thing's going to haunt you forever, because your students is going to come on time. They're going to look at you and say, Sensei, do you remember what you did with your instructor? I think it's time for me to do the same thing to you.
You're right.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate what you've done for me so far, but the same way that you broke away from your instructor, I think it's time for me to do the same.
That's very true.
It is unbelievable. That's how life.
You've modeled that
as
an instructor. You're like, hey, well, if it worked for you and you were successful, then that must be what might be great for me too.
Exactly.
Reach a certain level and time for me to go.
Exactly.
Be the one in charge, so to speak. Yeah.
So business-wise, if you think about you want to run a business, you want to run a successful business, you're going to have every single night, every single day, you're going to have the thought about who's going to quit, who's going to be the next one, who's going to come to me and tell me, I'm going to follow your footsteps.
Yeah. That's stressful. Stressful. That keep you up at nights.
Yeah.
So for those listening, if you haven't seen Professor's videos on Gracie University, you got to check those out. I'd watched some, but I got around to watching some of the other ones recently, and they're just really, really good. So just wanted to put that in there. I want to ask you about a couple of 2 or 3 peak experiences or memories throughout your life. So take us back, maybe anything that comes to mind early, maybe in your 20s, and then something a little later, 30s, and then something more recent, the last 5 or 10 years. What stands out in your mind? I'm sure there's a lot of different things you could speak to, but just what's 2 or 3 of the just kind of peak experiences in your life?
Well, I have many thoughts. One that is always on my mind is that, not so many people know that, but when I was a kid, I was a very hyper kid. And when I mean hyper, I mean super hyper.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't stop still. And I grew up in a very wealthy family. My dad was very wealthy, and my mom was very simple. She came from a very simple family. So my mom and my dad, the mix between two, I always gravitate more to the simple side than actually to the more high society side. So that's because my personality, I was kind of identify myself more with the simple side. Well, that means saying I was surrounded by employees. My mom used to have 6 employees working full-time in the house. We used to live in a big apartment. My mom used to have a woman to wash the clothes, people to cook. We used to have a chauffeur. We have a butler. My mom was very, there was a lot of people in the house. And those people, they have no, they tell things in your face very clear too. So those are the people that I was related the most. And most of the time, I used to hear that I was crazy. So I grew up thinking that I was crazy because everybody called me crazy. All those people that was all the time in the house, I used to listen to every corner in the house. Pedro's crazy. It must be Pedro. I bet it was Pedro who done that. Oh, something sharp broke. Probably it was Pedro. That's how it happened all the time. And one thing that caught me completely out of surprise was when I started doing Jiu Jitsu. My mom and Elio, they ended up to be very good friends. My mom always liked Elio a lot, and vice versa. And my mom was very respectful, super nice lady, very elegant, super classy lady. And Elio and my mom, one time they had a conversation that my mom told me many years later. And she told Elio, my son is crazy. Pedro is completely crazy. he does this, he does that. I hope Jiu-Jitsu can help him. And Helio, in a very smart way, looked at my mom and said, Miriam, if I gave $100 bill to Pedro and tell him to eat it, do you think he'll eat it or he put it in his pocket? And caught my mom completely out of surprise. My mom said, well, I think he'll put it in his pocket. I don't think he'll eat it. And Helio told my mom, well, I can still fix Pedro. And that was, for me, was a very...
That's great.
I just learned this many years later.
Yeah.
But one time I was training with Helio, and he got in the mount position. And when he was in the mount position, he put his hand right on my neck, and I tried to struggle. I was struggling to get out of there. I was pushing, pulling, elbow escape, nothing worked, and Helio's still in the mount position. And he looked right in my eyes and said, so what are you going to do now? You think you're crazy? You full of shit.
Right.
You don't trick me. And that day on, my whole entire life and my mask came out.
Wow.
And that's something I can never forget.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Yep.
That's really a defining moment in your life, for sure. Wow. Thanks for sharing that. That's really great.
My pleasure, man.
Well, I think we are running low on time. We got to get you to your seminar you're about to do. By the way, I've been in San Francisco all week, and just with a 3-hour time difference, my sleep's totally off. So I can just imagine what you're feeling like just coming from Brazil. But thank you, sir. It's always a great honor to be around you and to talk to you. So thank you for sharing your insights and ideas and letting us get to know you a little better. I really appreciate it. And I wish nothing for you but a longer, happy life with much health.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. For all the listeners there, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to be in this path, and count on me to always bring the best as I can be in Jiu-Jitsu, as integrity, as a responsibility, as a courtesy, self-defense, discipline, everything that Jiu-Jitsu has the best to offer. We as instructor, we have the obligation to pass this on. So I really appreciate all you guys to put the gi on, to train, and even the guys that doesn't put the gi on, but still train, make sure you bring quality. Bring all those qualities to your environment. You never regret what you're going to be surrounded with, the people you're going to surround yourself.
Well said, sir.
I appreciate it, Anil.
Okay, really enjoyed that interview with Master Sauer, and big thank you to him for taking the time to have a conversation with me. Also wanted to mention a few other black belts in Master Sauer's organization that I've really enjoyed meeting. People like Jim Bundy, Jorge Jimenez, Mark Morenz, who I hope to have on a future episode, and then Frank Cucci, who I had on a couple of years ago, so check that out if you haven't already. Okay, up next is the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. Okay, time now for the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. Let's start with a quote. I don't know what your destiny will be, but one thing I know. The ones among you who will be really happy are those who will have sought and found how to serve. Albert Schweitzer. And I really believe this quote to be true. You know, we can all achieve great success, accomplish many great things, accumulate untold riches. But there's a lot of difference between success and fulfillment. And in my opinion, the big difference between those is service. When we serve others, we make a difference in their lives. We fulfill that sense of contribution that satisfies our inner longing to help, to uplift, to elevate, to give to others, to support, inspire, and empower others. Here's another quote. Lose yourself in generous service, and every day can be a most unusual day, a triumphant day, an abundantly rewarding day. And that's from William Arthur Ward. So I ask you the question, how can you serve? This could be different for everyone. Maybe it means being involved in your community in some way. Maybe it means on the mat, if you're an instructor, serving that way. And if you're not an instructor, finding a way within the class to be a service of others as well. Perhaps it means volunteering. The opportunities are endless. Anything in any way that you can serve others is a way to grow. So as you go through your day, your week, your month, I invite you to be open to this question, how can you serve? And to the notion of service. I think you'll find if you look for the opportunities, they're there. And by taking action and being a service to others, you'll experience a lot more satisfaction and fulfillment in your life. And that's going to do it for this edition of the show. As always, I thank you for listening. I appreciate all feedback, so if you have feedback, please don't hesitate to give it. If you have ideas for the show or for guests, please let me know about those. You can leave feedback on the website at www.graciejujitsurocks.com. You can also leave feedback on iTunes, and while you're there, make sure to rate the show. It helps us with our standing in iTunes. If you haven't liked us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter, please go ahead and do that. And don't forget to share the episodes on your Facebook and social media. Again, thanks again for listening, and until next time, this is Marty Josie, and I'll see you on the mat.